On the morning of March 9th, 1974, a 52-year-old man steps out of the jungle on Lubang Island in the Philippines. He is carrying a functioning Arisaka rifle, 500 rounds of ammunition, several hand grenades, a samurai sword. His uniform is patched in at least a dozen places. The fabric has been repaired so many times that the original color is nearly unrecognizable. But the cut is unmistakable. It is still the uniform of the Imperial Japanese Army. The war he is fighting ended 29 years ago. Hiroo Onoda has not lost his mind. He has not gone insane. He has not forgotten where he is or what he is doing. He has simply never received the order to stop. And so, for nearly 3 decades, he has continued his mission with the same absolute faithfulness he brought to it on the first day. Ambushing patrols, sabotaging infrastructure, mapping enemy movements, surviving in dense jungle while the rest of the world rebuilt itself, buried its dead, launched satellites, landed on the moon, and forgot that men like him existed. By the time he walks out of that jungle, 30 people are dead because of his continued campaign. The Philippine government has spent years and enormous resources trying to locate him. He has outlasted 5 Japanese prime ministers, the entire Korean War, and the first 2 decades of the Vietnam War. Journalists have written about him as a curiosity, as a tragedy, as a symbol of something they cannot quite name. He is the last soldier of World War II. If you want to understand how this is possible, not just what happened, but why a sane, intelligent, capable man spent 29 years fighting a war that no longer existed, stay with us. Hit that like button right now. It helps us bring these forgotten stories to more people. Hiroo Onoda is born on March 19th, 1922, in Kamikawa, a small village in Wakayama Prefecture in western Japan. He is the third of 6 children in a family that carries its history seriously. His grandfather served under the old feudal system, in the era before Japan opened itself to the outside world. His father is a schoolteacher with strong views about duty, sacrifice, and what it means to be Japanese. From the time Onoda can understand language, one idea is drilled into him above all others. Obligation to the emperor is the highest possible expression of a human life. To serve is to live with meaning. To fail in that service is worse than death. This is not unusual in Japan in the 1920s and 1930s. An entire generation of Japanese children is raised on these values. What sets Onoda apart is not the values themselves, but the completeness with which he absorbs them. He is not a boy who performs loyalty for approval. He is a boy who genuinely believes it, in the way that some people genuinely believe in God, not as a social obligation, but as the organizing principle of his entire inner world. He is 17 when Germany invades Poland and World War II begins in Europe. He watches the news with intense interest. He is 19 when Japanese aircraft attack the American naval base at Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, pulling the United States into the war. At that moment, the conflict Onoda has been watching from a distance becomes the central fact of his generation. He is working as a clerk for a trading company in Wuhan, China, when his draft notice arrives in 1942. He is 20 years old. He does not need time to consider. He reports immediately. The army assesses him carefully. He is physically fit, mentally sharp, and unusually composed under pressure. He qualifies for officer candidate school. He trains. He performs well. And then, in 1944, something happens that will determine everything that follows. He is selected for training at the Futamata branch of the Nakano School. Most people have never heard of the Nakano School. That is intentional. It is the most secretive intelligence and unconventional warfare academy in the Japanese military. Its existence is classified. Students who are selected are told to tell their families they have been assigned to a signals unit. The real curriculum is something else entirely. At Nakano, Onoda is taught things that no standard military school teaches: how to gather intelligence without being detected, how to survive indefinitely in hostile terrain without resupply, how to build and maintain a guerrilla operation using only the resources available in the immediate environment, how to recruit local informants, how to conduct sabotage operations against infrastructure, how to think independently when communication with command is impossible. But the most important lesson, the one that will shape the next 30 years of his life, is this: you do not surrender based on what the enemy tells you. You do not surrender based on rumors. You do not surrender based on leaflets dropped from aircraft, or messages broadcast over loudspeakers, or letters supposedly from your family. All of those things can be fabricated. All of them are standard tools of psychological warfare. The only thing that can authorize you to cease operations is a direct order from your commanding officer, delivered in person and verified as genuine. The Nakano School is not being cruel or irresponsible with this doctrine. It is being practical. Japan in 1944 is a nation that knows it is losing. American forces are methodically destroying Japanese positions across the Pacific. The home islands themselves will eventually be threatened. In this environment, the army needs soldiers who will continue to fight even after normal command structures collapse. Soldiers who cannot be talked out of their mission by enemy propaganda. Soldiers who will keep going when everything around them falls apart. They are building the perfect guerrilla fighter. They do not fully understand what they are building. Onoda graduates from Nakano in the late summer of 1944. He is 22 years old and newly promoted to second lieutenant. His commanding officer, Major Yoshimi Taniguchi, gives him his assignment personally. He is to travel to Lubang Island in the Philippines, link up with the Japanese garrison there, and conduct guerrilla operations against Allied forces using the island. His specific objectives are to disrupt Allied use of the airstrip at Tilik and the nearby port facilities, to gather intelligence on Allied movements, and to prepare the island for a Japanese counter-offensive. Then, Taniguchi gives him the order that will define his life. You will continue your mission until you receive orders directly from me. Not from anyone claiming to speak for me. Not from documents or recordings or messages relayed through intermediaries. From me, in person. Under no circumstances are you to surrender or to take your own life. Do you understand? Onoda understands. He arrives on Lubang Island in December 1944. The island is approximately 140 square kilometers of mountainous jungle terrain located in the Philippines, roughly 150 kilometers southwest of Manila. It has a small civilian population, a Japanese garrison, and an airstrip that the Allies want to use. Onoda's job is to make sure they cannot use it. He has been on the island for 2 months when everything changes. American and Filipino forces land on Lubang Island in February 1945. The assault is overwhelming. The Japanese garrison, which numbers in the hundreds, is destroyed in days. Men are killed, captured, or scattered into the jungle. Onoda survives by doing exactly what the Nakano school trained him to do. He moves fast. He avoids contact. He gets deep into the jungle before the Americans can consolidate their positions. He is not alone. 3 other soldiers survive the initial assault and find him in the jungle. Corporal Shoichi Shimada, a 30-year-old career soldier from Hiroshima. Private First Class Kinshichi Kozuka, 24 years old, quiet, reliable, from Hyogo Prefecture. Private Yuichi Akatsu, the youngest of the group at 19, less experienced, less certain. The 4 of them establish a camp in the mountainous interior of the island. They have their weapons, some ammunition, and the jungle itself. They settle in. They are waiting for the counteroffensive. Japanese forces will retake the Philippines. It is only a matter of time. Weeks, perhaps. A month, at most. On August 15th, 1945, Emperor Hirohito broadcasts a recorded message to the Japanese people. His voice has never been heard on radio before. He announces that Japan is accepting the terms of the Potsdam Declaration. He does not use the word surrender. He says Japan will endure the unendurable. On Lubang Island, 4 men in a jungle camp hear nothing. In September 1945, the formal surrender documents are signed aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. World War II is officially over. The conflict that has killed somewhere between 70 and 85 million people, that has reshaped every continent, that has burned cities and broken nations and produced horrors that will define the century, is finished. On Lubang Island, 4 men in a jungle camp hear nothing. The first contact comes in October 1945. Philippine authorities, aware that Japanese holdouts may be in the jungle, drop leaflets from aircraft. The leaflets are printed in Japanese. They say the war has ended. Japan has surrendered. All Japanese soldiers are instructed to come out and report to the nearest Philippine or American authority. Onoda picks up one of the leaflets. He reads it carefully. He reads it again. Then he thinks about everything the Nakano school taught him. He thinks about what his commanding officers told him before he left Japan. He thinks about the specific warning that the enemy would use exactly this kind of material to break Japanese resistance. A leaflet claiming Japan had surrendered unconditionally, the most catastrophic possible outcome, the thing that the Japanese military and government had declared would never happen, was the most obvious piece of psychological warfare imaginable. Any soldier with training would recognize it immediately. He shows it to the others. They agree. It is propaganda. They stay in the jungle. In 1946, the efforts escalate. Former Japanese commanders record audio messages asking holdout soldiers to come out. The recordings are played from loudspeakers mounted on aircraft and vehicles. Leaflets are dropped with photographs and personal messages from family members. At some point, an aircraft flies over the jungle where Onoda's group is hiding and drops a message from his own family. He hears, or reads, his brother's words urging him to come home. Onoda processes this carefully. He knows that the enemy is capable of fabricating such messages. He knows that family members could be coerced into recording pleas. He knows that photographs can be altered. Everything he has been taught tells him that this is exactly what a sophisticated enemy psychological operation would look like. The more convincing the evidence appears, the more suspicious he should be. He stays. The group develops a complete operational rhythm. They divide the island into sectors and patrol each one systematically. They observe the airstrip and port facilities. They document Allied and later Philippine military movements. They maintain their weapons with meticulous care, breaking them down regularly, cleaning every component, protecting them from the humidity that destroys metal in the Philippine jungle. An Arisaka rifle that is not maintained will seize within weeks in that climate. Onoda's rifle, after 29 years, will still function perfectly when he finally surrenders it. They eat what the jungle provides. Bananas, coconuts, sweet potatoes they occasionally steal from the farms of the island's civilian population. Wild animals when they can catch them. They know every edible plant on the island. They know every water source. They know which paths the Philippine Army patrols use and when. They know the island the way a man knows his own house. They also kill people. This is not something that gets discussed much in the romantic version of Onoda's story, but it is the truth. The 4 men in the jungle are not passive survivors. They are conducting active guerrilla operations. They set ambushes on trails used by Philippine Army patrols. They booby-trap areas near their camps. They fire on anyone they consider to be an enemy combatant, which includes Philippine policemen, soldiers, and occasionally civilians, who they believe are informing on their position. From Onoda's perspective, this is warfare. He is fighting the enemy. He is doing his duty. From the perspective of the people of Lubang Island, 4 armed men are terrorizing their community. Farmers are afraid to work their fields in certain areas. People are being killed. The Philippine Army is spending enormous resources trying to hunt down soldiers who refuse to acknowledge that the conflict they are fighting ended years ago. In 1950, something happens that shakes the group's cohesion. Yuichi Akatsu, the youngest member, makes a decision. After nearly 5 years in the jungle, after watching the world outside continue to function, after absorbing all the evidence he can find that the war has genuinely ended, Akatsu decides he has had enough. He does not confront Onoda or argue. He simply separates from the group one day during a patrol and does not come back. Akatsu eventually makes contact with Philippine authorities and surrenders. He is taken to Manila, interviewed, and eventually repatriated to Japan. He is 24 years old. He has been in the jungle for 5 years. Onoda processes this carefully. One of his men has deserted. That is the word he uses internally. Deserted. Not surrendered to the reality of the situation, not made a rational decision based on available evidence. Deserted. The weak break. The faithful endure. Akatsu's departure does not shake Onoda's conviction. If anything, it hardens it. He and Shimada and Kozuka are the ones still doing their duty. They are the ones who have not broken. In 1952, another wave of leaflets arrives. This time they include Japanese newspapers, not fabricated pamphlets, actual newspapers with dates, headlines, photographs. The newspapers show a Japan that is rebuilding at extraordinary speed. New buildings in Tokyo, factories operating at full capacity, Japanese companies competing in international markets, people in modern clothes, driving cars, living what appears to be a normal peacetime life. Onoda studies the newspapers for hours. He examines the photographs. He reads the headlines. And then he reaches his conclusion. These are forgeries. Sophisticated ones, but forgeries. The enemy has gone to considerable trouble to create the illusion of a post-war Japan. That effort itself is evidence of how important it is to the enemy that Japanese soldiers stop resisting. The greater the effort to convince him, the more strategically important his continued resistance must be. He stays. The years pass. 1953, 1954, 1955. The group of 4 has become 3. 3 men in the jungle of an island that is, by every external measure, firmly at peace. Children are being born on Lubang Island who have never known war. The Philippine economy is growing. Television sets are appearing in homes. The world is moving at a speed that is impossible to comprehend from inside a jungle camp, where the central concerns are food, water, ammunition, and the position of the next patrol. In 1954, Shimada is killed. It happens during a confrontation with a Philippine patrol near a beach on the western coast of the island. The details are sparse. What is known is that Shimada and Onoda are in the area when they encounter a group of Philippine soldiers. There is a firefight. Shimada takes a bullet and dies. Onoda retrieves his body and buries him in the jungle. He is now 32 years old. He has been in the jungle for 9 years. His original group of 4 has been reduced to 2. He and Kozuka look at each other across the grave and continue. The question that everyone asks about Hiroo Onoda is the question of how. How does a rational, intelligent, capable man maintain this for so long? How does the evidence not eventually overwhelm the belief? How do 10 years become 20 years become 30 years? The answer is not simple, but it is comprehensible. Onoda is not operating in a vacuum of information. He is receiving information constantly. Leaflets, newspapers, radio broadcasts he occasionally intercepts. All of it tells him the same thing. The war is over. All of it is filtered through the same cognitive structure. This is enemy propaganda. The Nakano school did not just teach him to be skeptical of enemy information. It taught him that the more convincing the information appeared, the more suspicious he should be. Sophisticated deception looks exactly like truth. The enemy knows this. Therefore, sophisticated-looking evidence of peace is precisely what a sophisticated enemy would produce. This is a closed loop. There is no piece of evidence that can get inside it, because every piece of evidence is automatically classified as enemy propaganda by the very fact that it exists. There is something else. Onoda has built his entire identity around this mission. He is not just a soldier doing a job. He is the embodiment of a set of values that he has held since childhood. Loyalty, endurance, duty. If the war is over and he is still fighting, then he has been killing people for no reason for years. He has spent decades of his life on nothing. Everything he is, everything he believes about himself, requires that the mission be real. The psychological cost of accepting that it ended in 1945 is not just embarrassment or inconvenience. It is the complete destruction of the meaning of his existence. Human beings are remarkably good at not accepting that. He and Kozuka continue into the 1960s. They develop what amounts to a normal life, insofar as that word means anything in this context. They have a schedule, a morning routine, regular patrol routes. They know every rock and tree on their section of the island. They have sleeping areas for the dry season and different ones for the wet season. They repair their shelters. They maintain a small store of dried food for emergencies. They manage their ammunition carefully, never wasting a round. They also talk. 20 years of conversation in the jungle, about Japan, about their families, about what they will do when the counteroffensive finally comes and they are relieved. Kozuka is from Hyogo Prefecture. He talks about the food there. Onoda talks about his family in Wakayama. They are, in some sense, friends. The deepest kind of friends, forged by shared hardship and total isolation from everyone else in the world. The outside world occasionally intrudes in ways that cannot be ignored. In 1965, a search party enters the jungle specifically looking for them. Onoda and Kozuka watch the search party from the trees and do not reveal themselves. The searchers include Japanese officials. They call Onoda's name. They broadcast appeals in Japanese. Onoda listens and does not move. He has heard this before. It is another operation designed to draw him out. He stays. In October 1972, everything changes again. Onoda and Kozuka are conducting a raid on a rice storage facility near a village on the island. It is a routine operation. They have done this kind of thing dozens of times. They approach the facility, intending to take a portion of the stored rice. A group of Philippine police officers is waiting for them. Whether this is an ambush or a chance encounter is not entirely clear. What is clear is that there is a firefight. And Kinshichi Kozuka, who has spent 27 years in the jungle alongside Hiroo Onoda, is shot and killed. Onoda carries his comrade's body a short distance and leaves it. He cannot bury Kozuka the way he buried Shimada. The police are too close. He retreats into the jungle alone. He is 50 years old. He has been on Lubang Island for 27 years. Every man who came into the jungle with him is now dead or gone. He is completely alone, and he still believes the war is ongoing. The news of Kozuka's death reaches Japan within days and causes a national sensation. For years, many Japanese people had assumed Onoda was dead. The discovery that he was killed, actively engaged in combat operations, in 1972 is simultaneously shocking and clarifying. He is out there. He is still fighting. He is alive. The Japanese government faces a genuine diplomatic and humanitarian problem. Onoda is a Japanese citizen conducting what amounts to a one-man war against a Philippine island. People are dying. But the previous attempts to reach him have all failed because they all made the same mistake. They tried to convince him through evidence. Leaflets, newspapers, radio broadcasts, messages from family members. None of it has worked, because all of it is filtered through his training. The only thing that can work is the one thing nobody has managed to arrange. Major Taniguchi, in person, giving the order to stand down. The problem is finding Taniguchi. He has been out of the military for decades. He is a private citizen. He has moved. He is, in the early 1970s, working in a small bookstore somewhere in Japan. Nobody in the government has maintained contact with him. And the problem of finding Onoda first. He has been hiding on a 140 square kilometer jungle island for 27 years without being caught. The Philippine army knows roughly where he is. They do not know precisely. He moves constantly. He is, by any measure, one of the most accomplished jungle survivors in human history. In 1974, a 23-year-old Japanese adventurer named Norio Suzuki decides to solve both problems simultaneously. Suzuki is not a soldier or a government official or a journalist. He is a young man with an unusual appetite for impossible projects. He tells his friends he intends to travel the world in search of three things: Hiroo Onoda, a giant panda, and the abominable snowman, in that order. His friends think he is joking. He is not joking. Suzuki flies to Manila. He arranges transportation to Lubang Island. He enters the jungle with minimal equipment and a simple strategy. He makes no attempt to hide his presence. He carries food that he leaves in visible locations, and he calls out regularly in Japanese, announcing who he is and what he wants. He wants to talk to Onoda. He is not military. He is not government. He is just a young man who came to find him. This strategy works where every previous approach has failed, because it is different from every previous approach. Every previous attempt to contact Onoda has had an official character. Government seals, military authority, formal language, all the markers that Onoda associates with enemy deception operations. Suzuki arrives with none of that. He is just a person. In February 1974, after several days in the jungle, Suzuki finds Onoda. The encounter is cautious. Onoda approaches the young man with his rifle ready. Suzuki does not run. They begin to talk. Onoda speaks carefully, watching for signs of deception. Suzuki speaks honestly. He tells Onoda that he has come from Japan, that Japan is peaceful, that the war has been over for nearly 30 years, that Onoda's family is alive and wants him to come home. Onoda has heard all of this before. He tells Suzuki what he tells every messenger. He cannot act on this information. He cannot end his mission based on the word of a stranger, no matter how credible that stranger appears. The only thing that can authorize him to stand down is a direct order from Major Taniguchi. Suzuki asks, "If I find Taniguchi and bring him here, will you accept the order?" Onoda says, yes. Suzuki returns to Japan. He begins making inquiries about Taniguchi. The search takes weeks. Taniguchi is not listed in any military register. He has no public profile. He is simply a private citizen who spent the war as a junior officer and has since built a quiet civilian life. Eventually, Suzuki finds him through a combination of personal contacts and persistent inquiry. Taniguchi is found working in a plant nursery. He is in his 60s. He is a different man than the young major who gave Onoda his orders in 1944. But he understands immediately what is being asked of him, and he agrees without hesitation. Japanese government officials arrange the logistics. A formal order is prepared. A delegation travels to Lubang Island. On March 9th, 1974, in a jungle clearing, Major Yoshimi Taniguchi stands before Hiroo Onoda for the first time in 30 years. Onoda is wearing his uniform. His rifle is in his hands. He has not shaved in days. He stands at attention the way a soldier stands before a commanding officer. Taniguchi reads the order. It is official. It bears the correct seals and signatures. Its language is the formal language of Imperial Japanese military commands. It orders all combat activities to cease immediately. It informs Onoda that the war ended on August 15, 1945, with Japan's unconditional surrender. It orders him to lay down his arms. Onoda stands very still for a long moment. He will write about this moment later in his memoir. He describes it as the worst experience of his life. Not the 29 years in the jungle, not watching Shimada die, not the night Kozuka was killed and he had to retreat alone into the darkness. The worst moment is this one. Standing in a clearing with a folded order in front of him, understanding for the first time that everything he has believed, everything that has given his life meaning and structure and purpose for nearly 3 decades, is built on something that stopped being true in 1945. He does not argue. He does not ask questions. He has spent his life learning to obey orders, and the order is clear. He lays down his Arisaka rifle. He removes the ammunition from his grenades and hands them over. He surrenders his samurai sword, the sword that he has carried through 29 years of jungle, through monsoon, seasons, and droughts, through the deaths of all his comrades, through decades of absolute solitude. He has tears running down his face. The Philippine government's response to his emergence creates an immediate political problem. Hiroo Onoda has killed people. He has wounded others. He has conducted years of guerrilla warfare against Philippine citizens and security forces. He is technically a criminal under Philippine law. The families of his victims are still alive. They want justice. President Ferdinand Marcos makes a decision. He grants Onoda a full pardon. The reasoning is political and humanitarian simultaneously. Onoda acted under orders. He acted in good faith, according to the only reality available to him. Prosecuting him would accomplish nothing except further international attention on an already embarrassing situation. The pardon is issued. Onoda is free. He flies to Japan. The reception is extraordinary. Thousands of people are waiting at the airport. Journalists from every major outlet, television cameras, the entire national press. Onoda walks through the crowd in a state of visible bewilderment. He is 52 years old. He left Japan in 1944 as a young lieutenant in a nation at war. He is returning to a country that has been transformed beyond recognition. The Tokyo he left was a city preparing for total war, with food rationing and air raid drills, and the constant background presence of military authority in every aspect of daily life. The Tokyo he returns to is one of the largest and most prosperous cities on Earth. Skyscrapers, highways, department stores filled with goods, young people in fashionable clothes who have never experienced anything resembling the world Onoda grew up in. He gives interviews, he appears on television. His memoir, published in Japan in 1974 under the title No Surrender, becomes an immediate bestseller. People are fascinated by him, but the fascination is complicated. Onoda is not comfortable with the Japan he has returned to. He gives interviews in which he expresses concern about Japanese youth, about what he perceives as a loss of discipline, of national purpose, of the willingness to sacrifice that he believes made Japan great. He is polite about it, but he is also clearly bewildered and troubled by what he sees. Some Japanese people find this inspiring. Others find it disturbing. He is, after all, a man who spent 29 years killing people in service of a system that the rest of Japan spent 29 years trying to move past. His nostalgia for the values of Imperial Japan sits uncomfortably against the reality of what those values produced. In 1975, Onoda makes a decision. He cannot stay in Japan. The country he returned to is not the country he left, and he does not know how to live in it. He emigrates to Brazil, to the state of Mato Grosso do Sul, where communities of Japanese immigrants who arrived before the war have built farms and towns that retain something of the Japan he remembers. He buys cattle land. He learns ranching. He marries a Japanese-Brazilian woman named Machie Onuki. He works the land the way he worked the jungle, methodically, patiently, with complete attention to the task in front of him. He wakes early, he works until dark, he does not waste anything. He finds, in the physical demands of a cattle ranch, something that resembles the life he knew on Lubang Island without the killing. The outdoor existence, the self-reliance, the direct relationship between effort and survival. He stays in Brazil for years, but Japan does not leave him. In 1984, he returns to Japan and establishes a nature school for young people in Fukushima Prefecture. The school is called the Onoda Nature School. Its curriculum is exactly what the name suggests. Outdoor survival skills, physical endurance, self-reliance, the kind of direct engagement with the natural world that Onoda believes modern Japanese children have lost. Thousands of children attend over the years. Onoda runs the school himself, leading groups into the forest, teaching navigation and fire-making, and the reading of weather. He is doing, in civilian clothes, what he has always done. He is training people to endure. He divides his time between Japan and Brazil for the rest of his life. He gives occasional lectures. He participates in veterans' commemorations. He writes. He is, in the last decades of his life, a man who has found a way to live with the weight of what happened to him and what he did without ever fully resolving it. He never expresses regret for having fought. He expresses sorrow for the people who died. He expresses grief for his comrades. But the fighting itself, the 29 years of absolute commitment to a mission that had been rendered meaningless before it could properly begin, that he will not disown. It was what he was trained to do. It was what he believed was right. That the belief was based on a false premise does not, in his understanding, make it wrong to have held it. Hiroo Onoda dies on January 16, 2014, in a Tokyo hospital. He is 91 years old. The cause is heart failure brought on by pneumonia. He is the last surviving member of his original unit. He is one of the last living links to the world that produced him. A world that ended in 1945, and that he, alone among all the people who lived in it, refused to leave for another 3 decades. The Japanese government issues a statement praising his loyalty and his service. Military historians note that his case represents one of the most extreme examples of individual mission persistence in the recorded history of warfare. The families of people he killed on Lubang Island say the things that families of victims say when their killer dies peacefully in a hospital bed at an old age. All of those responses are true. None of them are complete. The story of Hiroo Onoda does not resolve into a simple lesson. It does not tell us that loyalty is good, or that obedience is bad, or that ideology is dangerous. It tells us something more uncomfortable. It tells us that the same qualities that make a human being extraordinary, the capacity for absolute commitment, for endurance beyond all reasonable expectation, for the subordination of comfort and safety and ordinary human need to something larger, can be aimed at the wrong target, and that nothing from the outside can redirect them once they are locked in. The Nakano School built exactly the soldier they intended. Every technique they taught Onoda worked. He survived. He maintained his mission. He resisted every attempt to demoralize or deceive him. He was incorruptible, resourceful, and impossible to stop by any conventional means. The only thing they did not account for was what happens when the war ends and nobody tells him. He was not a monster. He was not insane. He was not broken. He was a man who had been given an unshakable sense of purpose and a complete set of tools for ignoring any evidence that contradicted it. And then, placed in a situation where the evidence that should have changed everything never reached him in the form he had been trained to accept. That is not a story about Japan, or about the imperial military, or about the specific circumstances of World War II. It is a story about what human beings are capable of, about the terrifying power of complete conviction, about the cost of being built for only one thing. That is the story. That is the legacy. That is Hiroo Onoda. If this story hit you, like and subscribe. We find these forgotten stories every single day. Drop a comment and tell us where you are watching from. And watch this next video. You are not going to believe what this man did.